Hello and welcome to the Story Behind the Stories, your weekly look at the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press. Eoin Devereux, news and sports reporter with the Banner Press, welcoming you once again to the show. Always a pleasure to be able to sit here and share some of the news of the week with you. This week I'll be doing that with Casper Wehrhahn. Casper, great to have you in here today.
Good to be here as always, and while we have another full paper to go through this week, we had some stuff happen behind the scenes that kind of had it jam-packed a little bit, but made it work, so.
Man, you ended up getting one of the good weeks. I mean, there's some weeks where it's just like, we're trying to make it interesting, but let's be honest, it's not that interesting. But this week, and we were talking about this, we had essentially 3 different stories that under normal circumstances would have been our front page. And I think that is great, although it makes me wonder, oh God, what are we going to do next week?
Yeah, we might be a little bit strapped, but yeah, we had a lot of choices this week, and I don't remember what the other 2 were, but one of them for sure was election.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had to make some tough calls.
Yeah, oh no, most definitely, and that is our front page. Unless you were hiding under a rock, we had ourselves a federal election. Like it or not, whether you wanted it or not, most of us didn't from the opinion polls that seemed to be, and most of us didn't from the amount of votes apparently. But that's for another day, that's for a national broadcast to talk about. We had an election in Dauphin Swan River, Neepawa riding in terms of the feds, and status quo. Pretty much all throughout. Status quo for our local constituency, as Dan Mazur of the Conservative Party was reelected with about 59%, I believe, of the total votes. That was a little less than his initial election 2 years ago, but he still was elected relatively easily. And on the national level, it is the federal Liberals that will once again have a minority government. You can see that. When you look at the front page, there was a fair bit amount of work that was put together on this. It looks simple, but it takes a little bit of time. But it gives you all the background information on the national races and how they changed in terms of the seats, their popular vote percentages and all that. It's a little bit of work, I'll sort of say that, but it's worth it. Because, Casper, these are the types of front pages where you really get to be a little more creative, and I enjoyed that immensely. So.
Yeah, it's always nice to be able to kind of switch things up a bit and do something different on the front page. And this is an opportunity where we got to do that, so always nice to be able to have that.
That's right. We're not going to talk too much about the story that goes with it. I had an opportunity to speak with Dan Mazur on that. He said all the right things about being very pleased to be reelected. He thanked all his volunteers who put in the time and put in the effort and the work. But you can read that. Quite honestly, you could go back to 2019 and maybe read it and just add instead of elected from 2 years ago, because this is let's throw some, heck, Casper, let's have some fun. Let's throw some opinion out there. This is an election nobody wanted. This is an election nobody was really amped for, in my estimation, but let me get your take.
No, very much the same feeling, really. I was very displeased that Trudeau decided he wanted to call an election, because, well, it's only been 2 years.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we're in the middle of a pandemic. I didn't really want to have to go out and do all of this while there's that going on, but had to. It was called, so I did it, and I voted.
Yep.
It's always good to do. Got to make sure that you do that because your vote does matter. But yeah, just sort of that and the timeline of it. The timeline just felt like it was too fast for people, or maybe that was just me, but it felt like it was too fast for people to really consider the options out there.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean on that.
Yeah, because like the last election we had, you know, there was a lot more stuff that was actually coming to my attention, despite, you know, all the stuff I have to do,
issues.
Work, and
we
the
had
issues.
A chance to talk about issues.
Yeah, we had a chance to talk about issues, see what the parties like thoughts on them were and whatnot. And this time around is very much just like a whirlwind. Oh, there's an election. Oh, it's done. What?
Yep. And every time they did talk about the issues as well, Casper, it was always glossed over, clouded over with a little bit of the pandemic to go along with it. Because the issues, the significant issues of Canada moving forward, just never got that full perspective, I thought. It was unfortunate, like, especially when you consider we are more or less exactly where we were when we started. The Liberals, for example, last election they had 157 seats. When they came into the election, they had 155 seats. Now that we've done $600 million worth of spending on the election, and that's, Ken Waddell has said this many a time the last couple of days, and that's not including the donations from donors to each individual party. This is the amount we as Canadians paid. $600 million. And for 3 seats, the Liberals ended up gaining 3 seats. The Conservatives ended up losing, as of right now, losing 2 seats. There's a race in Charleswood, I believe, in Winnipeg, where they will do a recount. The Conservative candidate has a lead of 24 votes right now. So that automatically triggers a recount. So they could lose 1 seat, ultimately. But they have lost seats. It's just, everything is just the same as it was before. And everybody started looking at that now, Casper, and going, what the heck?
Yeah, and I've definitely seen renewed frustration, as is bound to happen when an election comes about regarding first past the post, because it isn't a good system at all, really. It doesn't make sense to me personally, especially when mail-in ballots still haven't been counted. Like, those don't get counted until like the week after. So like, why are we calling the winner when there's ballots that still have to be counted? It doesn't make sense to me at all, really.
Right.
Yeah.
There has been talk in the past about restructuring the election format. The Liberals, actually, Trudeau and the Liberals, during their first effort to be the party in power, said that they were going to seriously look at election reform. And we're still waiting on that look at election reform. And I agree with you on that there does need to be an evaluation of it. But at the same time, just popular vote and all that concerns me, because good examples of it are in Europe and in several countries, because you have large sort of groups of political parties. Nothing ever gets accomplished because you can never have a majority, whether it's Liberal, Conservative, NDP, or anything like that. So you're always, but maybe that's a good thing, because then you have to actually work with other parties to actually get the job done. Maybe a little bit of light bulb popped into my head there. Maybe reconsider that.
Yeah, we definitely need some sort of reform that, works for Canada, that isn't first past the post, because let's face it, it's not the fairest system. We need one that is fairer so that we have better representation. Yeah. And yeah, like you said, that kind of situation isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, a minority government isn't a bad thing either. Yeah. That's sort of the closest we have to what we would get most likely with proportional representation or whatever it would be. Because, yeah, you kind of have to try and work together on things. And in a minority government, the other parties that want to try and push out more progressive legislature, what have you, can actually try and do that without having to wait for, the next election to hopefully get into power to be able to do that. So, yeah.
It's interesting. I forget whether it was the Globe and Mail or whether it was National Post, but there was an article recently that talked about that, about restructuring the election, and it broke down how each party would have done if that was the case. If we had a different structure, the Conservative Party would be the minority government at this moment in time, because they received the most votes. Very closely behind, though, it'd be like only a few behind would be the Liberals, because the Conservatives had 34% of the popular vote across Canada, while the Liberals had 32.8% 2% of the popular vote. So it would have been close. What's interesting, though, Casper, is, and this has always been a pet peeve of mine, and I've said it in articles before, the Bloc Québécois is not a national party. Why are they involved in national policy? Until they start running candidates in Moose Jaw and Flin Flon, the fact is that they are the third, according to the election, they are the third party of Canada. But according to their popularity, they are the fourth, behind the NDP. NDP would be getting better representation as well. People's Party would have 7 representatives under the popular vote. They would have 7 representatives in Parliament right now, if that was the case. And the Greens would have 1. So take that, whatever your opinion is on any of these parties, you take that with it. So there's positives and there's negatives to go along with any structure, any system. I've always said this one thing, Casper, and let me get your take on it. I like the Canadian system for the most part compared to the American system, except for one thing. We don't get to directly vote for our Prime Minister. Because there's been times, and let me get your take on this, where I've liked the local candidate, but I thought the national leader was an idiot. And I've liked the national leader, but the local candidate, and again, I've been around, so don't think I'm picking on somebody from Neepawa, but I've been to Brandon, Portage, Winnipeg, I've been in many communities where I thought the local candidate was an idiot and wouldn't vote for him. So, but what is your take? Do you think that's something that should be looked at?
I think it'd be worth a shot, honestly, because, yeah, like, you can have somebody running for the party you would want to win nationally, but you don't like the local candidate. You'd prefer a different candidate because, well, it aligns more with your values and the things that you think that the party you would want to win nationally would stand for. And having to vote for someone locally who might not necessarily match with that anyway because they are the party that you would ideally want to win, kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Kind of sucks because, yeah, you can have a good local candidate and a bad national candidate for the party that you would prefer. You can have bad local candidate for a good national candidate. So being able to vote independently for each, I think, could potentially be beneficial. I'm not entirely sure how it would work, but being able to vote directly for the national leader, I think would be a bit of a stress relief for people.
I think, no matter what system you end up picking, there's going to be pundits who disagree with it for one reason or another. And the system's not perfect, but it's a system that we're trying to make work. Democracy should be work and continuous work throughout. So hopefully we continue to get to be annoyed by this every 2 to 4 years, because there's many people on this globe that don't get that opportunity. So, but I think that's about all we can say about the election for now. I think that's all you want to hear about the election for now. And hopefully we will not have to speak about it for you and to you on it for another 3.5, 4 years, which means we'll see you back here this time next year.
Fingers crossed that's not true.
Yeah. Speaking about seeing something back next year, I am very glad this next story that we were able to return down to the football field at NACI and see a bunch of smiling faces, socially distanced smiling faces, mind you, but still smiling faces participating in the Terry Fox Run. Last year's event was a little revised because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was structured out, sort of scheduled out so people could show up at certain times and do the run. This year, everyone was able to be there. Everyone was still being smart about it, though, and it was wonderful to see. And it was wonderful to see the amount of support. Just over $9,000 this year was raised from the Terry Fox Run. One of the better years they've had in quite some time. Very pleased to be able to share that information and just to see people just so it felt like normal. quite honestly. Even though it's not normal out there still, it felt a little like normal. People were just talking about helping out, talking about the legacy of Terry Fox, the significance of who this individual was, and just happy to be helping out. It felt pretty darn good. Let me just, anything you want to add, Casper, in regards to the support Neepawa seems to have thrown out there for a worthy cause?
Well, it just feels good to see how this event has popped off, especially now considering, like compared to what we would consider now a normal year, with COVID and all that going on. Because like $9,000, that's a pretty hefty sum for a local initiative to gather. And this is a field that needs a lot more research, because even though we've come so far, we still have a long way to go. So it'll definitely help further that cause and get some more research into this area.
You can find that story on page A2 of this week's edition of the Banner Press. Right along with it, it's interesting, $9,000 seems to be the benchmark, Casper. There was another campaign rolling that you can share some details on, can't you?
Yeah, 9,000 really seems to be the key number this week. We had another campaign going on, a nice tasty one that did come to our office. We had 3 boxes of cookies come here in support of this cause. But Tim Hortons did the annual Smile Cookie fundraiser. And they got over $9,000, just $86 over that $9,000 mark.
It's not a competition, Casper.
No, it's not. And, of course, cookies are $1 each, so that's a lot of cookies that they baked throughout that stretch of time.
Simply amazing.
Yeah, September 13th to 19th. So many cookies in that short time span. And that actually smashes their record from 2020, because they did $6,214 last year. And all of that last year went to the Neepawa branch of the Salvation Army. This year, the money is going to be going to HMK. So nice to have that little bit going on there. And hopefully they can smash the record even harder in the future.
Really great to be able to share both those stories. Both of them you can see on page A2 of the paper this week. Always like to be able to share that type of good news. Interesting feature you wrote up this week, Casper. It's a story about an individual we have talked about before in the pages of the Banner Press. A young actor. She has been doing quite well for herself in terms of her career, and she has branched out to even bigger things in terms of just production of the films themselves. But walk us through this one there.
Yeah, so this was a story that originally started before my time at the paper here. But Tammy Gillis, a Dauphin-born and McCurry-raised individual, is starring in and actually executive producing a new film called Riverfront Romance. Now, romances aren't typically my genre, but sounds like she had a lot of fun with this. Like I said, she's playing the lead female character there, Cara Durant. And it sort of revolves around some developments that are going on in the character's desired sort of dream location to be set at. And she's got to figure out a way to stop this thing from happening if she can, because it'll change the area significantly. And so there's going to be some discoveries going on between the two characters, and we'll just have to see how it plays out.
You really tried hard not to be spoilery. You really did.
I did. I want people to read this story.
Spoiler alert: the butler did it.
It's a good story. I'm glad that it came into my emails there, and I could arrange the interview. It was very interesting, honestly, just getting to talk to Tammy and hear about her experiences on different sets, because over her career she's tried to really not sort of get as she said in the interview, like pigeonholed into one type of thing. So she's done like several different things, like Supernatural, Ghost Wars, Van Helsing, and then, you know, Hallmark movies, all sorts of different stuff.
Those are so huge.
Yeah.
One of my housemates watches the Christmas ones religiously, even in June.
Yeah, and you know, she's had just so many different experiences, like going from acting to, and part of acting, like doing stunt fighting, which she hadn't done previously, and, well, executive producing. There's, you know, different things that she can do in each role, and it's really fascinating.
That's the thing as well. For those of you unfamiliar, executive producer, and if I remember right, is essentially the person that takes care of all the little incidentals behind the scenes, arrangement, money arranging. I mean, taking care of the craft services. Well, not in terms of, but hiring them and all that. Every little problem sort of goes to the producers and the executive producer. So an interesting hat to take on while also trying to envision the role. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah. And she kind of admitted that she struggled with it a little bit because when she's acting, it's just like, you know, you got to be flexible. So if there's something that comes up, she's just like, well, I can do this, but I can also do this, like what works best for you. But sitting in the executive producer chair, you have to make a decision for sure so that the production can keep going forward. So she kind of had the director on set there that she's fairly close with, kind of like nudge her now and then, like, hey, you need to please, we need to carry on. It was really interesting, a little backstage type thing. So if you want to check that out, it starts on page A3 on our Travel and Entertainment in the Banner Press. And I will say very quickly as well that because I accidentally missed it in the article, I didn't see that until after print, unfortunately, but this movie is premiering on Super Channel on October 2nd, but it will be playing throughout the month, so you'll have plenty of chances to check it out.
Just really quickly, I'm going to skip ahead to something here, and the reason that is because we have 4 pages of Meet the Teachers this week. It's a good paper, don't get me wrong, but it could have been great. It could have been that next level. We had 4 pages we couldn't touch because it's all Meet the Teachers, and it's essentially just, unfortunately, it's Meet the Buildings because we weren't able to get the teachers all together due to COVID restrictions, quite honestly. So we wanted to do a lot of different things. There had been a lot more room for Casper's story. There would have been a lot more room and a lot more color for the election, and there would have been a lot more room for this item that's coming up shortly. But that's the backstage. Sometimes you don't get to build the paper you want to build. And, you know, you just got to sort of put that aside and then move on to the very next one. All right, speaking of moving on, we're going to move on to this one right here. I'm very pleased to be able to share with this issue. It was the first regular season home opener for the newly rechristened Neepawa Titans. And it was great. It was great just first off to be in the arena after about 11 months away. It was great to feel the atmosphere of a lot of people just excited to be there, much like the Terry Fox run. And it was exciting just to see the good team out there just win. Let's be honest, the last 10 years, the formerly called Neepawa natives, for one reason or another, just weren't able to sort of get to that next level. They've only made the playoffs once in that period, and they had yet to have a winning season in about, this is the 11th, it's been 10 years since they've had a winning season. And I'm not guaranteeing they're gonna win everything this year, but this feels like a different atmosphere. This feels like a different attitude. And maybe that'll perpetuate itself in their performance. They were able to defeat Dauphin in the home opener 3-1. They lost in Dauphin's home opener 1-0, but they dominated. If you listened to it on the radio or watched it on hockey TV, you'd be surprised how one-sided that game was. It's just the Dauphin goalie stood on his head, essentially. So hopefully you'll support the team by going down, watching a game, maybe buying some merchandise. The merch, Casper, actually during the game was flying off the shelf. It was shocking. Like, I saw one woman buy like 3 jerseys, another one buy a bunch of pucks and hockey sticks. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's quite the purchase because, you know, just, and that is kind of something that I was wondering if it would happen or not, and I did feel like it would, but people picking up more merch with the name change because it's something that they can really get behind.
Yep.
And I don't blame them, because like the new logos and just the color and everything, it's so bold and just, I don't know, it feels like it's invigorating.
It is. It feels like a different team, and all the old weight of the old team over the years feels like it's just been put aside. This is a new era. This is a new start, and hopefully a positive one. Because whether you like sports or don't like sports, these types of teams represent our community. They have the name Neepawa. They travel to Winnipeg. They travel to other communities representing Neepawa. So hopefully they do it well moving forward. But again, you can find the story. It's on the sports page, and you can find that collage of pictures on page A19 of the Banner Press, the A section. Just really quickly, we'll finish up the day talking a little bit about the B section. It's our monthly Farmer's Advocate. Just talking about some of the crop reports that are going in this year, some new opportunities for farmers that need some supports due to the drought conditions that they dealt with, some livestock opportunities that are presenting themselves. We've got a few stories on that. Updates. Surprisingly, the crop coming off the field is at a 5-year sort of well above the 5-year average, which is a real positive. Even if you're not on the farm, even if you're not in the field, I think it's important that you take a little bit of time to sort of educate yourself on these types of things. It is the industry of the region, and it's very important to Neepawa. So hopefully it's something that you do take a few minutes for, in my opinion. What do you want to throw in there, Casper?
No, absolutely. And, it's, well, where do we get our food from? It's the farmers. So it's very good to sort of learn more about this stuff. And it's very interesting, honestly. We'll have some pictures later on for this, but I actually got to sit in a combine today and see exactly like how that works. It was very fascinating, but it's definitely beneficial to take a look at this kind of stuff and just see what they have to do and the conditions that they're dealing with, just learn more about it and be more knowledgeable as a whole.
That's right. Farmer's Advocate, again, this month's edition, available in this week's paper. We got about 2 minutes left, so let's just very quickly. It's not on the list, Casper, but I just want to throw this out there. 98-year-old Rita Harper voted in the last election. We got this information. Kira was able to go down, get a picture, talk with Rita about it for a few minutes. It's wonderful to see somebody still energized about that and still energized about being able to be involved in the process like that. Wonderful to be able to share that with our readership. Anything you want to add about that coming around our desk?
Well, it was very, cool in a way to see. And, I felt like she was very sort of up on the importance of voting because I believe it says on the page there, but she was from... No, it was due to the years. It was due to the years. Because she's been voting since 1945, and originally the age of eligibility was 21 until the 70s. Obviously, it's lower now. So, she's been voting for quite a while, and, she wants to make sure that her voice is heard, and I hope that all the younger generation will be inspired by that.
That's right. Just wanted to cap it off with that. So you can find all of that in the pages of this week's Banner Press. Now, if you have a story tip, you can get in touch with us by calling 476-3401. We always appreciate a call. We appreciate a thumbs up, thumbs down, or a letter. We got a bunch of letters. We couldn't put them all in there, sorry to say. We're going to try and get as many in there as we can. You can contact us through news@neepawabanner.com or pages at neepawabanner.com. If you have an advertisement you'd like to do, ads@neepawabanner.com always keeps our doors open. So once again, we thank you very much. And thank you, Casper, for sitting in today.
Thanks again for having me, and I look forward to it next time.
All right. So until the next time, thank you very much for sitting down with us and reviewing the stories behind the stories.